close to Pakistan, but Pakistan do not have diplomatic relationship with them. So destroying Pakistan is a common objective of the Indians and the Israelis. And Indians find it very convenient because they themselves do not have the capacity, do not have the power to destroy Pakistan. They have been trying. They were able to break away Pakistan's eastern wing in 1971 through the collaboration of the global, using their global financial control and using their global terror tactics to make America do all these things which the Israeli foreign policy demands. Never in history you would such a small country controlling such a huge country like America. And Misra, the last line of his article of December 9, very interestingly says, it has other phenomena like outsourcing war on terror to mercenaries attached to it. He's talking about Mossad. The Mossad has a habit of outsourcing terrorism. Mossad excels in forming armies of private mercenaries and destabilizing states the world over. Just go on the net. And this time, the Mossad's target is Pakistan. The war has come to Pakistan now. There is an urgency in Mossad now. There is an urgency in Israel to destabilize Pakistan. And for that, they want to drag India with it. Now, the convergence of interest between the Indian fascists, the Israeli Zionists, and the American hardliner neocons is one. Target, Pakistan. And that was Mumbai. That is why Mumbai was orchestrated. That is why the Indians are going practically hilariously overboard trying to prove that Pakistan was involved, despite overwhelming evidence from eyewitnesses and their own media and Western sources that this was an inside job. It was a false flag operation. They did it themselves. They wanted to divert attention from themselves towards Pakistan. They wanted to create a global justification that India must wage a war against Pakistan. It was a false flag 911. It didn't work out. They goofed up. But they tried very hard. And lots of people died in this covert black operation. That was Mumbai.
Antule seeks probe into Karkare's killing, 18th December 2008, TNN.
Let me
Minority Affairs Minister.
Yes. Now, you see, it's not again. The death of the police officer who was being threatened by the Indian Hindu hardliners was so strange and even because there's no inquiry on it. Nobody knows how he died, despite the fact that he was the topmost anti-terrorist officer. The Indian Minority States Minister actually raised the issue in the parliament and asking for a solid inquiry. But what actually happens in return? The entire Indian parliament goes after him, literally forces him to withdraw his statement. The fascists, again, this is again a sign that the fascists have won in the Indian parliament.
And they've got great influence in the parliament.
Exactly. That man, Antoli, was brave enough to take his stand. He stood his ground for a very long period of time, suggesting, no, yes, there is a suspicious character to his death of the police officer. Some fascists are involved in killing him. He has not been killed by so-called Pakistani terrorists. There is something which must be investigated. Yes. And he was forced to back down in the parliament by the fascists. And this is what I'm saying. Indian Federation has been taken over by fascists. The nationalists, the seculars have lost the war in India.
And do you think the upcoming elections in India?
And exactly, in the upcoming elections in India, the Colonel Prohi, the man who's a known terrorist, the man who killed dozens of people, planted bombs all over India, the BJP, the mainstream party, is saying they will make him stand as their ministerial candidate. And they are saying the Narendra Modi, the man who has thousands of blood on his hand, the man who burned people alive, the man who burned children alive, is now being tipped as the Indian Prime Minister. Say farewell to the Indian Federation. Indian Federation is going to disintegrate like Austro-Hungarian Empire if this fault line, if this direction that the Indian Federation is taking
I totally agree, Zaid. I totally agree with you. So this man was forced to keep his mouth shut on this particular issue. Was the Mumbai attack a contractual terrorist operation? 19 December 2008. Again, Amrish Mishra.
You see, again, why we are quoting Mishra here again? Because he is only brave man in the Indian media who is constantly, and he has the guts, he has the contacts, and he is a local, secular, hardcore Indian.
And a very known investigative journalist.
He's written so many books, very well acclaimed. Now, every week, he writes a new article exposing more information that comes to him, because there's so many sources he's getting his information from. Of course, he's not getting his information from ISI, but he's getting from his own Indian sources. Now, he says, very interestingly, that it was later discovered that the telephone SIMs, the telephone cards, chips which were being used,
so-called the terrorists used,
so-called terrorists who were using them, were actually provided by the undercover Indian intelligence officers. And his article, and it written on 19th of December, Misra says, was the Mumbai attack a contractual terrorist operation?
Yep.
And he says, one of the two Indian men arrested for allegedly buying mobile phone cards used by the gunmen was a counter-insurgency police officer who may have been on an undercover
mission
duty. Now another, he says, senior police officer in Indian Kashmir, which has been at the heart of the tensions between India and Pakistan, demands that the release of the officer Mukhtar Ahmed, saying that he was their own and had been involved in infiltrating Kashmiri militant groups. Primarily, it is the implication of Ahmed's involvement that Indian agents may have been in touch with the militants and perhaps supplied the SIM cards as well. It is categorically proven now that the people who supplied the telephones and the SIM cards to the terrorists worked for the Indian intelligence. They were undercover officers. They knew all along each and everything which was happening. It was not a surprise attack.
Basically,
it was not a surprise operation that the Indians were doing.
They were the people who scripted this whole...
They scripted the whole thing. They wrote the whole thing. They orchestrated it. But as we said, idiots as they are, they goofed up big time. They messed it up completely. There's so many trails, so many... The entire trail, so many fingerprints they left around, that even their own media, even their own officers, their own investigating team, and remember one thing as well, that Indian police, from the team of ATS Kurkure, from the team of the police officer, were on the tails, were on the heels of those terrorists, trying to find out who killed their boss. And naturally, they have also come up with so much of information which Misra has and he has written. And it's worth reading his articles actually.
Arif Chaudhry acknowledged that he was a Pakistani in his statement.
Yes, this is very interesting because a few years back, there was an attack on Indian Red Fort in Delhi. And again that attack, just like the attack on Samjhauta Express, was blamed on Pakistan. Nobody knew what happened after that because few people were caught and nobody knew because Indians hushed up the investigations. Why did they hush up the investigations? Because the man who was caught, the statements that he gave were so damning against the Indian intelligence. And Misra quotes them, Misra writes them, and I quote.
Yeah.
And one of the Indian websites, Tehelka, is a very famous website because they are known for, Tehelka means creating a storm. I mean, they are famous for creating storms. They have really exposed scandals within the Indian society and system. And Tehelka writes about the Red Fort incident. Arif, that's the man of the terrorist supposedly caught. Arif candidly acknowledged that he was a Pakistani in his statement under section so-and-so, but he also explained in detail the circumstances under which he came to India. Arif claimed that he was an operative for RAW, India's external intelligence agency. His statement reads, I used to work for the X-branch of RAW since 1997. This is the most damning statement against RAW. They had hired a Pakistani to act as a terrorist to create a justification that Pakistanis are involved in terrorism in India. And that is why Tehelka exposed it, Misra writes it, and we present it today, categorically suggesting that Red Fort operation was also a covert operation by RAW to rope Pakistan in, creating a justification that Pakistan is ISI and Pakistan security establishments are terrorist organizations. Again, their own sources exposing them. And that is why you find no investigation of the Red Fort case. You find absolutely nothing coming out of the Samjhauta Express case also. And in fact, because there are dozens of Pakistanis, almost 100 Pakistanis were killed and wounded, burnt alive in fact, when the doors of the train were closed and explosives were put inside by Colonel Prohit, the man arrested by Kurkure. And these terrorist acts were all blamed on Pakistan.
Imagine those doors were closed.
They locked the doors.
They locked the door from outside.
And then they burned those people alive.
Can you imagine?
Burning people alive is the favorite hobby of Indian hardcore Zionists, of Modi, of RSS, of Bajrang Dal, of Shiv Sena, and Bal Thackeray.
Because they burn the dead bodies as well. So
because they burn the dead bodies, so they burn Muslims alive. And this is the mentality of them. And this is what the RAW has been doing. Red Fort operation was a black op, false flag operation. The Samjhauta was a false flag operation. Mumbai was a false flag operation. Everything is exposed now from their own sources.
Now we'll be talking about, they say that listen to the terrorists is this language of a Pakistani from Punjab or an Indian
You see, what
from South
the Indians
India.
have done is that they have dug their own grave.